This episode of Livin The Dream is brought to you by Ooh La La Cosmetics. That's OOHLALA Cosmetics.ca. Guys, does your girl wear makeup? Well, none of us know what to get. So go to the website, click catalog, and get a gift certificate. Enter discount code DREAM and get 15% off your entire order. Go now. Support the podcast. My guest today is a writer, teacher at the Gordie Sampson Song Camp, a solo artist, inventor, sword fighter. You may know him from such bands as Slowcoaster, Knotwerk, and We Are Summer. He also co-wrote and performed the theme song for this podcast. So, without further ado, please give it up for Steve MacDougall.
Livin the dream. 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 Livin the dream.
Are we including this? Are we live?
We are live.
I don't know, man. I want to talk about everything with you. Everything we always talk about is
Sure,
that's what I want to get into. I think I first want to talk about actually being a musician as this kind of podcast gears towards the Livin the Dream aspect. I really want to delve into what it is like to be a full-time musician, and really like when you started. When did you really know that you wanted to do it for a living and not quit, really?
Oh, I think I was dreaming the dream from like say 13.
Right.
I formed my first band when I was 15.
What were you called?
We were called Absolute.
Absolute?
Yeah.
Just straight on spelling?
Straight up.
What year was that?
That would have been 93, I think.
What genre?
It started off as kind of cover stuff. We had known a few older bar playing musicians that were already playing, like, they were playing in the clubs, so to speak. Mm-hmm. And I lived in a little village called Donkin, way out in the friggin' boonies. So like the grunge era that was really starting to kick in the metropolis of Sydney hadn't really hit, my group of people yet, kind of thing. Right. My group of people were, or like I said, we were kind of looking up to these older musicians, and they were like, well, if you're going to play the bars, you have to play Trooper songs and Here for a Good Time, and you have to play Summer 69.
You have to be the radio.
You have to be the radio from 20 years before, Right. So I focused so hard on that, and so hard on like perfection coming out of, say, like a Metallica phase or heavy metal and shit, like guitar playing, shredding. I was so focused on that I didn't really pay attention to what was going on music wise. I got to university, and it was like, when I got to university in 1995, 96, it was the year after Cobain had died. I remember being in my last year of high school in a different school because they tore down our school. That's my giant fat cat walking around. And I got to high school in Glace Bay, and everyone was listening to Nirvana and stuff. And I was like, this is such crap. I was like, why would you listen to somebody that can barely fucking... You know what that is? That's the start of the podcast alarm. Long story short, I couldn't believe like grunge. I couldn't wrap my head around why people were into not such good technical players.
Right.
And then I slowly kind of got into it. I was a little late to the game, and then I moved to Vancouver just to get as far away from where I grew up in Canada as possible. Oh my God, what is that? My cat at the door?
Yeah.
Oh, just let her out. She's such a giant shit bag. She's just she just needs to go outside to know that it's raining. Isn't she fat?
Very fat.
So fat.
Have to get a picture to post.
Anyway, this story is not very exciting. So long story short, I was living in Vancouver and I was, working various jobs and stuff, but playing at little clubs and everything, just me and my acoustic, experiencing my first taste of like, lack of a better term, like modern hippie living kind of thing. Like you go out there, it's a pile of Quebecois and Australians with dreads.
Right.
White guys with dreads, white girls with dreads. I ended up being one of those white guys with dreads after a pretty quick time.
Do you have pictures of you with dreads?
I had one picture, and it's just lost to the ether.
I think I need to see that picture.
Oh, fuck, me too. Me too. I need that picture. It goes pre-digital, like digital. Everybody has digital photo,
right. Things could actually
photography.
Be lost.
Things could be lost. You could take a picture and you never see that picture again. And then, I just worked all these various jobs and started living that life. And it's my first. This would have been like 1998 when all these guys were walking around and they were like, "We take mushrooms all day long,
right?
Every day." They're like, "We treat depression with mushrooms," and
right.
That's actually I've seen it in the news lately. And I've had friends of mine out there would have these vials of powdered mushrooms, and they would just constantly take them all day long. And I when I came back to the East Coast in like just before 2000 to kind of form this band that we kind of pseudo formed out there, Devin and I, but didn't have a bass player. We kind of brought that back with us. Some of that sensibility, that hippie sensibility that really it started to kind of hit here, but we didn't really know anybody, especially in Cape Breton Island. It was zero.
Right.
It was when I first started coming to this part of the East Coast where I saw it again very quickly after I'd come back.
New Brunswick, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
New Brunswick is the BC of the Maritimes. It really is.
Yeah.
Charlotte County is definitely like the northern BC of the East Coast, just the scenery and the general attitude and stuff. I talk to people in New Brunswick and I say like, "I love New Brunswick, it's so laid back, it's so this," and they're like, "Oh really? We find it really religious and stuffy in New Brunswick." I'm like, "Fuck, will you try out Nova Scotia for a couple of years?"
Right. So that was the beginning of Slowcoaster in BC.
That was like the beginning in BC and playing reggae music because we lived on this place called Commercial Drive, which was I don't know if you've ever been there or not, but it's kind of like the epicenter of all. It was the epicenter of all of that. I've been back a few times and it's kind of gotten a little gentrified now. But it would be, you'd go to the park and people would be smoking weed in the park, and it was, that was my first taste of the Grateful Dead. It was my first taste of Fish.
Right.
My bosses at my job would just be blaring it constantly, blaring Sublime and blaring Grateful Dead. Like I said, it was like I'd known that these bands existed, but they weren't on my radar really, or I couldn't understand it. A friend of mine who had lived in BC and came back to Cape Breton, we were roommates just before I moved to BC, and he listened to Fish constantly, and I just couldn't wrap my head around it. Like, again, it was like another musical genre that I've encountered as a musician, and I'm just like, who the fuck would listen to this? Like, right. I remember listening to the solo from Reba and just being like, who the fuck would listen to this?
How long was it?
It was long. It was the CD version of Reba. And as irony would have it, 4 years later, I get pulled over by the cops doing an insane amount of speed on the highway getting to a gig. And I got out of it by saying, I was listening to this solo, and I turned up and it was the Reba solo. Yeah, now I tout that as one of the friggin' best pieces of music in modern history. At the time, I was like, what the fuck was this? But that's that, yeah. And then it just kind of went from there. That's that whole culture, like it's never gonna end. It's always gonna be around. You go to see Humphreys all the time and stuff, right?
Humphreys McGee, yeah.
Yeah, Humphreys.
Well, it's the cult aspect of a jam band where like every show is so completely different that you can keep going. Like I've seen Metallica and I've seen bands like that where the show is same set list every night, no variation to the songs, you know what I mean? Yeah. So they're big enough that they can sell out stadiums and play the same set every single night. Mm-hmm. But bands on a tier just below need that jam aspect and the improv to make each show unique and to keep you coming back. Like, they make all their money from people seeing 4 shows in a row.
Yeah.
But you're not going to want to go to 4 shows in a row where it's the exact same show every night.
Well, the jam world isn't making its money on royalties either, right? Or
exactly.
Any of that stuff. I don't view them as being on a tier below. I view them as being like on a dimension over.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know what I mean? Because I went to see Fish once in my life. Mm-hmm. It was 2 summers ago in Mansfield. And of course, following the band and being in a band and playing all these jam festivals and stuff, I kind of had it in my head what it was going to be. But it was so much better.
Right.
It was so much more than that. And and we as a band, as Slowco, we've lived our lives like that. Like, we've lived our lives kind of being forced into the mainstream a few times, mm-hmm. and then trying to chase that dragon a few times, which is really kind of gets to your brain. And I've never wanted it any other way. Once your eyes are kind of open to a few things here and there.
Right. Well, that's kind of the I guess the unknown side of the business. Like, everybody thinks you want to be on TV and you want to get that big single and you want to be the one-hit wonder and just get famous, but really that's not how the music business works. And
I think a few people have a bizarre notion, or they just have this set notion of what you should have done or what you should be doing or what echelons you should have reached. When we were touring Japan, we mostly just toured Tokyo. We were introduced this idea in Japanese culture called water business. And what water business means is it's just business that has no tangible effect. It might have a tangible effect on society in an underlying tone, but it has no tangible business effect that is respectable. So, for instance, theater, strip clubs, brothels, and music are all filed under water business. So the government has kind of essentially just let the mafia take over all those businesses because they just don't want to. It's like dishonorable for a businessman to be involved in water business. You know what I mean? So when I see somebody or hear somebody give out the hate for the business like that, or hate for the artist, or they don't understand that for every million guitar players, like literally a fucking million people, there'll be one guy that becomes like the guitar flavor of the month or something like that. Right. Because the guitar is kind of weird in these days anyway. But what I'm trying to say is it's very rare for somebody to be like a Justin Bieber, rich, or famous kind of thing. So instead of shooting for that, just shoot for happiness and shoot for longevity. For us, it's always been a marathon, not a sprint. Mm-hmm. I'm venting because I haven't had that kind of hate in a long time. Right. I've had a lot of hate. Like, it's happened. When our two worlds have met, like when the mainstream in air quotes, Exclaim magazine and what's it called? Pitchfork and stuff. Mm-hmm. When those worlds have met my world, they just don't understand each other ever. Mm-hmm. I remember Exclaim came to one of our shows and it was fantastic. It was like a Set It Evolve or something like that, and it was fucking awesome. The audience was super into it. We were super. It was crazy. There's thousands of people and stuff, and Exclaim was like lame. And then it's so relative because you hear what they like, right. And it's like, what the fuck? Like, I could throw my cat down the stairs. But then, and made the same music. But then that becomes my opinion. Right. People making opinions on art to me is like, it's trying to like explain music to someone that's deaf. You know what I mean? It's like, right. It's so, I can't come to you and say what you like is not good. Exactly. I've always felt that publications like that should only have somebody who enjoys that style of art reporting on that style of art, because the only people that are going to read it are the people that enjoy it as well. So you might as well get an opinion from somebody who actually enjoys the same things as you, because there's a ton of stuff I don't like. Dude, like, I don't need to be reporting on that. I'm not trying to influence people to not like something. You should be trying to influence people who don't like it to like it. You know what I mean? Oh, they trashed us. They're just like, that is nothing but a mediocre rock band who plays too long or.
Right. But that's what sells.
Yeah, but right? Meanwhile, you know, they're like, but wait to hear the new Stars album. It's going to blow your mind. It's only ukulele and armpit farts.
That actually doesn't sound too bad.
Yeah, and it's like 5 out of 5 stars for that record. Slowcoaster sucks.
I know, but it's just completely different worlds. Something that a lot of people don't know is that you actually do play music outside of Slowcoaster. You write music and you go to Nashville and you work there. So like, what can you tell me about that? What, like that aspect of the music industry that really nobody's really familiar with, like writing music for other bands. Like I've said to people before, like, oh, this guy writes all the songs for Taylor Swift, and people are like, no, Taylor Swift writes all her own songs. So there's just so much about the music industry that people don't understand. They see a performer and they believe that everything that performer is saying is that performer's property. So like, what can you tell us about that? Like,
well, I played a few, like I just spent this weekend, I did multiple shows with 3 different acts, I guess. Like I did a show in St. John for the Alzheimer's benefit thing they had there. I did that as solo, as myself. Yep. Went down to Paddle Fest here, and myself and Mike Hummel played in our side project called We Are Summer. Mm-hmm. And then I went to Halifax and played at the Tattoo Festival with the Celtic band Knotwerk. But, you know, I actually took a break from Nashville, and I'm starting just kind of starting to send some stuff back out again, because it's a little hard in the head, because it's a totally different hustle. Right. It's a little more real. I can't explain that, but like, since the time you become a musician, you have it in your head that the fantasy is you're on stage, you're the guy, you're Michael fucking Jackson, you know what I mean? Like, right. You're the guy, or your band is the band, and you try to set that bar, and then you try to get as close as you can to that fire, you know? And I felt it a few times. I have definitely felt like, you know, you're on stage and it's tens of thousands of people and they're totally loving it, and you're just like a fucking Greek golden god, right? Like right. That, and then that feeling goes away, and then it's worse than a drug, right? I think that's why so many artists experience like a type of mental illness or a crushing depression. That's, you see, it's like, oh, now the fucking fat cat wants back in. I'm keeping all this cat stuff in this podcast, by the way. Of course. The cat's probably just looking for some Kentucky Fried Chicken or something. God, you're so fat.
What's your cat's name?
That is Sasha. How does an animal let itself get so fat?
I'm not entirely sure. They're not supposed to be inside, I don't think. They're lions, man.
They're not supposed to be hunting. Neither one of those animals there, that Yorkie and that cat, are supposed to exist at all.
That's true.
People are like, people will be carrying around their Yorkie saying like, say no to GMO foods. Eating a banana and carrying a Yorkie.
I know it.
That's a totally other podcast. Anyway,
they should be hunting.
I forget what I was talking about. Just
Nashville.
A bridge story is I grew up in Cape Breton Island. There's kind of like the echelon of music. Cape Breton is that's all we have is music, right? And the ability for everybody to be a musician. It's like imagine a whole island of people that are being pushed into dentistry or something. Cape Breton's like that, only as music. And it's actually, you know, a respectable thing. Oh, you go to Cape Breton as a musician, and the higher you get up, you're more well respected there. Whereas other places, it's kind of like, get a job. But anyway, there's this guy named Gordie Sampson, and he was always playing in bands and this and that. But there was always something special about him that made him better than anyone else. Like that, we've all met these people. They're like, they've got this genius twist to their ability that almost makes them like infallible when they play. Like they can do a little bit more than you can, no matter how hard you try. They'll always be able to do something better. And there's tons of those people out there. I fucking love those people. So long story short, I had the band. Gordie, I'd known Gordie almost my whole life. He was 5 years older than me. And he called me out to his studio, which is like this world-class studio built by people from Los Angeles, come up to Cape Breton. And I had written a couple of songs with him, my first time kind of co-writing for one of his records. And it kind of went pretty good. Like, 'cause he would do these solo records. They never really went anywhere. It was kind of his passion projects or whatever. And then he moved to Nashville because he was just writing here and there because that's the epicenter of writing. And within months of moving to Nashville, he wrote Jesus Take the Wheel. And it was just like Grammys and awards, and it was on American Idol. It was everywhere. There's even still memes about it, right? And so he was hugely popular down there for writing this massive hit. And he called me, he flew me down to write for his next solo record, flew me down twice in the same month. And all of his kind of friends were kind of like, you're fucking flying this Yahoo in from Cape Breton Island. Oh, right. This guy must be amazing, which I wasn't.
Right.
Especially country music. I couldn't write I had no idea. All I knew about country music was I hated it.
That works.
That was all I cared to know about it. And it took years and years, but I slowly learned the craft of that and started to kind of, I don't know anything. Like these guys down there, these guys are the ninjas, right? They know the business side of it, the publishing ins and outs, the law, the musicology of it all. Like how close can you bring one song to sound like another song without getting sued?
Right, because they all sound...
You'll hear a song on the radio and it's like, that's Jack and Diane, only not. It's just enough.
Not enough.
It's just enough to be like, I love this song and I don't know why.
I already love
this song because it reminds me of a song I can't put my finger on. But anyway, there's a massive hustle down there though. Like there's 30,000 songwriters in one small town. And they all want the same thing, and they will slit your throat for it. And at the same token, you get out of it what you put into it. If you're like, I'm moving there, and I'm from 9 a.m. until 6 p.m. every night, I'm doing nothing but knocking on doors and writing songs and learning and making headway. And then you get a lot of people that are like, I'm thinking like that, but now I've got friends and they all party and now we party every day. And now I'm bitter because no one has discovered me in my drunken stupor of my basement.
Right.
I just couldn't put the Nashville time in. Whereas I probably, looking back, I would have used my time more resourcefully, but you don't think of those things at the time. You just don't.
And you never know what tomorrow's going to bring, right?
So I started getting a few minor hits, Canadian hits in country music with just people like Jimmy Rankin and George Canyon and those guys, and I'm writing with those guys to this day, and I do love that. But it can definitely it can burn you out, because it's a different side of the. It's like business and creativity at the exact same time. It's crafting, so. Yeah, it's a totally different side of the business, which is really what people are addicted to. And people like those writers and stuff, man, they are so good. Like, it's crazy how good. They're so good musically and, with the genius factor and stuff that I know this for a fact with a few of the artists that I work with. When I say artists, I mean songwriters down there. The few of the songwriters I've worked with, they're so fucking good that they skipped over the whole stardom part. And they have record companies to this day begging them to be like a star. And they're like, I'd lose money.
So they make more money writing music for other people.
Absolutely, yeah. They're like, if I went down to be like a huge pop star, I'd lose like $20 million a year or something. I'm writing right now for all the pop stars. Why would I go be one? It's ridiculous. Right. Put on going on the road and blah, blah. They know this, right? And they sit around and they talk about it very casually. Like, EMI called this morning, they offered me $10 million, blah, blah, blah. But I say, fuck, no, I'll lose $10 million if I give you. And it's like, I was eating like cheese and crackers down there. Like, I would be hoarding cheese and crackers. And, because I immediately kind of gone into the upper echelon of Nashville. Like, I've skipped over like 10 years of kissing ass in Nashville. And they'd be like, yeah, we're all going to dinner. And it's more like, yeah, all right, we're all going to dinner down the road, man. Let's go. And it's like, they're hillbillies, but their dinner will be like $500.
Right.
So they're like, oh, no, I'm fine. I just ate. So I'd go to the bathroom and eat some cheese and crackers. They're like, I'll just have coffee. Wait, you sure you're not going to eat? Man, no, the coffee's fine. I don't know. I could prattle on, as far as your podcast goes, I could prattle on with the industry and my shithead opinions about it forever, man.
I love it.
Like, forever.
I like hearing it because nobody hears that side of it. Unless you're in it, you don't hear it and you don't experience it. So Like, that's the interesting part about it. I've played music, and not with zero success, mind you, but like,
that's not true, man. I've seen you rock George's Paul's Wharf in St. George.
Yeah, well, we definitely opened for you a handful of times, but we never really got to see anything behind the scenes because we never really played any shows of any importance. Like, even when we played at Evolve, we just showed up, played, didn't even really hang out backstage. I was still young and I still wanted to party. I was there for the festival, not really to play. So like, I never got to deal with corrupt bar owners or any sort of licensing or any managers, anything. Nothing professional.
I'm dealing with that right now. I got an email the other day that said, I hear you're playing at this specific bar. I just want to let you know that the bar owner is into this, the political ideology, and you shouldn't play there. And I was like, well, fuck. If I had to, you know, not play at a bar because of a quirk of an owner, I would have no shows.
Right.
I would have no shows left. So, but this is a weird age, man.
It really is.
I think it's the beginning of something good and scary at the same time, where you can be, you know, we worry about that brave new world of like, you're judged on your social credit system than on who you actually are and what you do. And as Canadians, we're like, we'll never go that way. Mm-hmm. And then I was talking to a festival owner the other day who said, we were just about to have this person at the festival. And then we got an email saying, I just want you to know that the drummer for this festival said this online 5 years ago. And albeit it was a weird thing to say online, it was a political thing. But they dropped that person from the festival because the drummer from this band had said something 5 years ago.
That is insane.
So yeah, I look at it both ways. Yes, it's insane. But is it also a way to just weed out all the shit? That's the positive spin I put on everything that's happening right now politically. It's like, it all seems really dirty and nasty and crappy, and you can't believe, you shake your head at what people are doing and saying. But it's like, it's weeding out all the darkness, you know. It's weeding out. So you take that guy's band has now, so that drummer probably got fired or something, and now that drummer's basically going to be unemployable. So now put that towards a political spectrum or a job spectrum. No, you cannot be the principal of this high school because 5 years ago you said some Nazi shit on Facebook or something. That's all right. We don't want you here. You know, that's okay. It's the slippery slopes, right? On both sides, the slope gets slippery quickly. So yeah, that's okay.
I guess it depends on what he said.
Is it though? You know,
yeah. But you
that's
say
the
like
slippery slope.
I mean, everybody's got their political views, but like I said, it depends on what the guy said on Facebook. You say he said something political, that could be a wide range of things. He could say, I don't think Trump's that bad. Or he could say, death to, you know.
Exactly.
You know
That's the slippery slope. It's like, where do you start to draw the line?
Exactly.
Who's right, who's wrong, what freedoms are what, you know. Anyway, we got way off the track of music here, but that's the power of editing.
Yeah, that's right. Okay.
I forget what we were talking about. That's okay.
Not politics.
Not politics. It's a different podcast. I like this. I think we should do this more.
Let's do it all the time.
I like this, and it sounds amazing.
Good.
Yes, we should do this.
I would do it all the time.
We'll pick actual topics.
Now it's time for a new segment of the podcast. I've decided to call Closing Out the Podcast with a Song.
So this song is called I have a long list of lies I tell myself. Little country tune. Sometimes I just pretend that she left me 'cause she loved me. Need a little breathing room that's only temporary. She probably hates it out in Vegas, probably ain't no someone else. I got a long list of lies I tell myself. Well, I'm the king of wishful thinking, I'm the president of blame. A mix of fact and fiction, sometimes they're both the same thing. Whatever gets me through is a lonely night. When your memory hurts like hell, I got a long list of lies I tell myself. I bet she's missing me like crazy. Got a tattoo of my name. I bet she's 6 rows down in a window seat on a coming home to me plane. And any second my phone's gonna ring, collect from some old dive hotel. I got a long list of lies I tell myself. Well, I'm the master of excuses when it comes to killing pain. I mix of fact and fiction, sometimes they're both the same thing. Whatever gets me through is a lonely night. When your memory hurts like hell, I got a long list of lies I tell myself. I got a long list of lies I tell myself. There you go.
Awesome, man. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Livin the dream.